Well, good evening, folks. Here we are on Socialist Telly. It's been a pretty eventful evening, hasn't it? Eventful day. Not necessarily the way many socialists might have liked it to have gone today. A pretty emphatic defeat of the motion to restore Jeremy Corbyn to the Parliamentary Labour Party. And on the show tonight, we have to speak to us on this Lynn Siegel, who will be joining us shortly. Steph Linkogel, I hope I pronounced that right. Yep. Islington Friends of Jeremy Corbyn, and Laura Alvarez. Honestly, she's there somewhere. Welcome, folks. How are you feeling after the day?
What is there left to say? It's crazy. What a situation.
Not like Mondays.
Yeah.
It's pretty. I mean, I hasten to say it wasn't entirely an unexpected decision, perhaps. That we kind of thought that the Parliamentary Labour Party or the NEC were going to go down this road, that perhaps the odds were stacked against us. Is that a fair comment to make?
We're getting a lot of feedback from somebody's mic there. Somebody got their mic up loud rather than having earphones in or something.
I think we knew it was going to be difficult to win, but I think we thought it was important. I think people have been holding back, and it's a terrible situation. It's completely unprecedented. It's completely unfair. To Jeremy, it's unfair to the constituents of Islington North. It's unfair to all of the ordinary Labour Party members that expect better. They expect democracy. They expect people to be treated fairly. And although it wasn't successful, I'm glad that the left members of the NEC did take a stand.
Yes, they've acquitted themselves extremely well, and I thank all of them. Actually, I'm sure we all thank them for bringing the motion forward to try and draw a line under this and try and bring unity back to the party, perhaps. But more and more divisiveness it seems to be the direction that things are going to be taken in. Bonnie, you want to come in?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's completely wrong-headed. The membership are still massively behind Jeremy. Obviously, his constituents want him as an MP. It seems to me utterly bizarre that we've got a leadership, Keir Starmer's leadership, allowing a literal Tory to join the Labour Party benches, crossing the floor at the same time, denying the same right to an elected Labour Party member who's represented his constituents for decades, taking apart the fact that millions of people voted for the party that Jeremy led until very, very recently. He was twice elected the party leader democratically. I think it's a massive mistake. There's lots of socialists that are still in the party. And actually, if the party wants to win elections, and if the MPs in the party want to win elections, they need the socialists. They need those of us on the left to actually go out and knock on the doors to get the votes out for people. I'm very disappointed in this decision. Obviously, it goes without saying, but I also think it was strategically wrong. It's absolutely the wrong thing to do if this lot are serious about winning elections.
It does defy logic completely. I just don't know what they hope to gain by continuing to go down this route. Laura, how are you guys in light of everything that's happened? Perhaps a silly question, maybe, but
yeah,
you have to ask.
We are fine, yes, but of course, as Bonnie said, we are quite disappointed. So about the result, I think it's outrageous. I think it's terrible. So these people who took the decision, actually, they didn't realize how this movement can be growing. So Jeremy is not the leader of the Labour Party, but I believe that he's a leader, international leader, for many reasons, for many facts. So Jeremy Corbyn has been a campaigner all his life. Yes, we have evidence, we have facts. Yes, and nobody wants to discuss that. So only the right wing, they are using very abusive attacks against him. But about the proper politics, about the socialist issues, nobody can challenge him because they know that he has been always in the right side of the people. Yeah. So that's why they are so scared of him. They are really scared. And also, I'm very disappointed because in Islington, most of the people, they want Jeremy Corbyn to carry on to be the member of the Labour Party. They want that he serve the people in Islington. But not just in Islington, it's just as well in London, it's around the country. Because wherever we used to go, Jeremy always brought people together. It was a big crowd, always. And still, I can see any other leader who can replace Jeremy Corbyn as an honest politician in this country. So I think they challenge too much the members, and I give an advice to these people: please don't undermine this movement. Don't undermine the people in this country, because these people are waking up, especially young people.
Yeah, young people are the ones that will give us hope because they don't listen to the mainstream media. Perhaps they're not going to listen to the various talking heads. They're going to read and they're going to go online and they're going to look for stuff and they're going to see things that inspire them and enthuse them. Of course, Jeremy was central to that. Since 2015, he brought people of all ages, frankly, together and under a sort of unifying banner to want change for this country. I'll include myself amongst that. I'm not particularly young. But I wasn't particularly politically involved before that point either. He woke something up in me. I wouldn't be doing what I am here today without Jeremy Corbyn waking something up in me. And I'm sure an awful lot of people who are watching this, also on this panel, who will say exactly the same thing. The man is a leader. He will always remain a leader, even if he doesn't lead the Labour Party. The Labour Party, frankly, is bereft of leadership right now. This is not leadership, what we've seen today, is it?
No.
I think I was tied up with a couple of technical things at the beginning of the program there, but I'll just introduce. So we have Jeremy Corbyn's partner Laura Alvarez on the program, along with two members of his CLP, Lynn and Steph, who are going to talk about that about today's events. I saw somebody asking the questions about which unions voted which way, and I have what I'm told is the correct one. It's provisional still at the moment, but it appears to be that the unions that voted for Jeremy's reinstatement were Unite, TSSA, ASLEV, CWU, and the Fire Brigades Union. And the unions that voted against were Unison, GMB, USDOR, and the musicians. So if that's correct, then shame on them.
Yeah.
And, the factional politics winning that again, because there's no. I think it was a panic measure, to be honest, by Starmer in the first place. The lack of backbone in removing Jeremy from removing the whip from Jeremy when even a right-dominated panel of the NEC had seen sense and realised they had to readmit him, and he was just buckled under pressure and is reaping the consequences ever since. Sorry, Laura, go on.
Yes, and also don't forget that Jeremy is giving a lot of support to these two unions, GMB and also Unison. Jeremy stands side by side with all the workers to fight with them together about workers' rights, about wages, and to have a proper social justice. I think it's disgraceful that Unison doesn't recognize either the members in Unison and also GMB. I think they should be more kind to the members in their own unions.
I'd like to say, I think that is right, because one thing that's been so grotesquely lacking in our politics for so long is a way of dealing with care. And I've written about that, and we're all aware under the virus now how incredibly careless our Tory government has been in allowing the collapse of our NHS and its austerity programs, leaving us all bereft. And it was under Jeremy in both 1917 and 1919 that we finally had discussion of how to get good social care, how to deal with this issue once and for all. And Unison also is committed to improving the quality of care, so that they should vote against Jeremy Corbyn is truly amazing, and so much against their own best interests. But I've much more to say on the whole background to it all.
Well said. And then there was one abstention apparently in the vote today, and I'm led to understand that was Anne Black, who formerly some years ago was on the left slate, then wasn't on the left slate, and there's but I mean, this is what I gather is a message from Anne Black as to why she decided to do that, which says, I was planning to vote for the motion to restore the whip, but every cut and paste email makes this less likely. I don't respond well to being mobbed by people who are too lazy to write in their own words, and neither do most NEC members. I thought that had gone out with momentum. You guys have just lost Jeremy a vote.
Wow.
So that's the reason. So this is it's not a matter of principle. It's a matter of getting pissed off at too many people emailing you about the principle.
Style. That's a new one. Yeah.
Boo-hoo, people lobbied. Anyone would think lobbying was a new thing.
That's disappointing.
Yeah, that's the state of things where we are at the moment, I'm afraid.
I'm a GMB member, and I'm very disappointed. I'll be letting my feelings be heard tomorrow. It's not good enough. That doesn't represent my position whatsoever. I'm glad, of course, that Unite did support Jeremy on this, which is another union that I belong to. But very not surprised, but disappointed in Unison and the GMB.
Yes, well, I mean, that was that was an eye opener to me, because I've never been a Unison member, but I would have assumed that the Unison reps on the NEC would be bound to go with the wishes of their executive, and they have a left executive now in Unison. But it would appear that it's from their point of view and within their rules, they just basically do their own thing, and there are two pretty much right wingers in there appointed by the management of the union. And they obviously towed the factional line on that one, which is again shameful. Yes, I hand up there.
But as somebody just said, I mean, what we're dealing with and what we've been dealing with since 2015, is this battle between left and right of the Labour Party. So I was around when Jeremy Corbyn got elected in 1983. In fact, I was one of the people helping to get him, first of all, chosen and then elected, and my house was election rooms for the campaign in 1983. And the amazing thing then was that even then, the number of people who came out to support Jeremy was amazing. I mean, lots of people in the Labour Party, lots of people not yet in the Labour Party, but who joined when he got elected. Really huge range of people. And we worked so hard, and we were so excited. And as we were exhausted that night in 1983, I remember Jeremy saying, well, there's not a lot I'll be able to do immediately to calm us down. And of course, that was so true. And that very night, Margaret Thatcher was poisonously re-elected. And then, of course, we had New Labour. And so, there were many things that Jeremy was able to do for his constituency, for all of us, for me, for everyone. But the right simply never thought that Jeremy could get into power. They did not believe it. And when he was elected, they simply continued to refuse to believe it. As Peter Mandelson said, I wake up every morning trying to work out, how to get rid of Jeremy Corbyn. And that is what the right of the party were doing. So the forces lined up against him were absolutely huge, through all their dirty tricks, dirtier and dirtier as time went on, it's perhaps not so surprising that we've ended up where we have in the tragedy we're in.
We saw during Jeremy's campaigns people that had never taken an interest in politics, people that never really understood how politics affect every aspect of their life. And not only did people get engaged, they got involved. We saw numbers of people out at the rallies, on the doorsteps, on the telephones, doing whatever they could to secure a victory under Jeremy. I've never seen, I've been involved in politics for a very long time. I have never seen enthusiasm like it. I can remember getting on the tube in London and I was wearing a Jeremy for Leader t-shirt, I think. And nearly everyone on the tube stopped to speak to me. And that's virtually unheard of in London.
Yeah.
People don't look at each other in London, but to be talking politics with absolute strangers on the tube was phenomenal. And I think what Starmer's Labour has done is they've miscalculated the fact that the genie is out of the bottle. People know that there is an alternative to policy, to austerity and the policies of the Tory party. The current leadership of the Labour Party seem to be completely ignoring any demand for any opposition. And they are hoping that we'll all go quietly. But the bottom line is, Jeremy's woken lots of people up, and I'm really grateful for it, because it's so important that we've got a voice that leads us in with our campaigns and so on. And even by choosing to keep Jeremy out of the party, all that does is galvanise us, because us on the left believe in solidarity. It's really important we stick together. And whilst they may chip away a few people left, right and centre, fundamentally, people know that there can be a fairer way of doing things. And that is everything, as far as I'm concerned, that Jeremy has stood for his whole life. We can get those things. Someone else out there in a position can help us achieve what we need to achieve in this country. For all that they might try and, blacken his name or turn us away or tell us that we've got it wrong, I remember the current leader of the Labour Party saying that we needed unity in our party. What happened to that?
What a lie.
Yeah, absolutely.
It was a campaign promise meant to be broken, wasn't it, really? That was the...
I'd say that, they starting from when Jeremy became leader, they were using a strategy of attacking an individual, because they didn't actually go attacking the policies because they're popular. And they've just kind of continued with that. And they're still attacking Jeremy as a person instead of, taking responsibility for the policy shifts that they're making. And they just hope that we won't notice. But, like Bonnie said, the genie is out of the bottle. We know these things are possible. We know, it's possible to have an amazing manifesto, which the policies are very popular. So I think, you can't stop it. And just to sort of echo, like, Jeremy's popularity in Islington North is mirrored elsewhere. That kind of relatability that it has to people, that's not something that the current leadership is displaying at all. That kind of, relating to people, actually caring about them. It's all spin and self-interest. And, that doesn't go down very well. But actually what's happening in Islington North, and we're speaking here as just members of the CLP, not the CLP itself. So just to be clear on that. But, we are active and on the doorstep. What's happening to Jeremy is not going down well at all. People are very, very angry and disappointed that this is happening.
Let me just quickly jump in on a couple of comments in from viewers. So Pete Furman is saying that how I described the Unison process isn't correct, and that Unison's delegates on the Labour's NEC weren't appointed by Unison management. They're elected by the Labour Link, unfortunately, before they left when the exec, and they can't be replaced. The senior Unison insider told me on Monday, technically, the two reps Unison nominates to the Labour Party NEC are not even accountable to the Labour Link section. They are nominated as trade union reps. They would need to give due regard for Unison Labour Link policy, but essentially have a free rein. So the Unison insider folks seem to think that that's pretty much how it works. And the other thing that came in, if I can find it here, so from Janet, members of the SCG, this motion, well, the ones that I know have come out in support of it are Apsana Begum, Claudia Webb, Bergen, Ian Byrne, Zara Sultana, Diane Abbott, and Kate Osborne. If others have, I haven't seen it. But check their social media feeds themselves if there's any particular MPs you want to find out what they've said today, if anything, about the campaign to get Jeremy reinstated. Sorry, who was next there? I'm sorry for jumping in.
I suppose I would have to say I seem to feel more depressed than some of you because, what we lost by not having Jeremy elected in 29 is so catastrophic. We have seen such waste of resources, literally hundreds of billions sent to the corporate sector, who have massively increased their money, nothing into the public sector, nothing being done to make our lives better. And, so little that has been said from the current Labour leadership in terms of doing more to support the public sector, in terms of stopping this, really obscene outsourcing of public resources to the private sector and so on. We really have suffered, are suffering, and will keep suffering, until something changes inside the current Labour Party. Hopefully getting Jeremy back and pushing for other changes. We are in quite a catastrophic situation.
Well, I mean, let's be blunt about that. The faction that played a huge role in Labour losing that election in 2019, however they try to rewrite history since, is the faction that's in control of the Labour Party at the moment. Is the faction that is responsible for everything that's going on, whether that's Jeremy Corbyn's situation in the party or the expulsion of large numbers of members and the exodus of 200,000 other members for the sheer disgust at Starmer's complete shredding of his campaign promises. I just think you didn't have a big enough shredder to do it quicker, or he would have done. Laura, go on.
Yeah, but also let's remember what happened in 2019. So Jeremy has more than 10 million vote that they vote for Labour. But also let's remember, and we had always to emphasize to everyone that the mainstream media, they play a huge role in the campaign. Like 97% of the mainstream media, they were attacking Jeremy every single day, every single minute. They were smashing his socialist policies. When he was speaking about the NHS, they twist his words. They were protecting Boris Johnson. They always protecting the Tory party, and they always they were attacking Jeremy every single day. And now what happened with the new generations, with the young people? For them, it's very difficult to find a job. They are in big debt. If they had to go to the university, if they want to do a master, it's very difficult for them to find work, to pay the rent, to pay for food. It's just disgraceful. And and as I mentioned, the right wing, for them is very easy to sit in parliament and to say, I have a very good salary, I have a very comfortable life. Probably my children's or my grandchildren's, they will be all right because I will pay insurance. Doesn't matter if the USA's privatize the NHS. Doesn't matter if I can pay for my grandchildren's. But they don't realize that it's going to be effect for the new generations. So they don't understand the big issue. You just they thinking about this moment, but the legacy of them is a shame of them.
As we know, that's quite right, Laura. And as we know, the continual attacks on Jeremy from day one have now simply expanded into an attack on the left of the Labour Party. I mean, he was so under attack because he was on the left, because he was a socialist, because he was concerned about equality and all those other issues. And now that's extended, and it's done in such truly obscene ways with, for instance, the majority of Labour Party members who've been expelled for anti-Semitism are Jews. I'm not quite sure why I haven't been expelled as a Jew. I'm waiting to be expelled any moment for anti-Semitism, and so there's a complete perversion of reality, of truth that we see being manipulated all the time. And those of us who stand for justice and equality, and we know that justice must include peace everywhere. It must include the rights of Palestinians to live in peace with their neighbors, the Jews in Israel, and so on. Because Jeremy represented that, then it had to be totally distorted and turned into something else. So I know, as a Jewish Labour member in Islington, how strongly Jeremy supported Jews in Islington, how he actually had to stand up against Margaret Hodge to stop her dismantling and building over the Jewish cemetery there and so on. Some of the main supporters of Jeremy in his constituency are in fact Jewish, and yet we're told, we still keep hearing this smear about Jeremy's anti-Semitism. And so, that's just an example, of the twisted ways in which a totally false alternative reality is being forced upon us and the world through the media, the right-wing media.
Bonnie, do you want to come in?
Thanks, Damo. Yeah, I was just going to say, as both Lynn and Laura have mentioned, the NHS was absolutely crucial to fight for. And I remember a very pivotal moment of the 2019 general election was when Jeremy stood at Hustings on TV with a dossier of all of the contracts that were going to be given to American health insurance companies. And my goodness me, he was absolutely right to do that. And the fact that in the last 2 years, we've seen probably around 200,000 people lose their lives to coronavirus because we've got a prime minister who, instead of tackling it, taking a zero COVID approach, has wanted to see, he quoted, he doesn't mind seeing the bodies piling high in the streets. What an atrocious attitude to have. But while the pandemic's rolled on, obviously a lot of Conservative friends have made an awful lot of money, and that's happened because of the outsourcing of contracts for PPE and other services that have gone to people with no qualifications. As far as we can see, there's been no scrutiny or due diligence done on millions and millions of pounds of our money that should have gone to a publicly provided NHS, but has instead gone into private pockets. And actually, since that election, we have seen absolutely no commitment from the current leadership of the Labour Party to end the privatisation of our NHS. And another of the policies which Jeremy was slated for in 2019 was actually visionary. The idea that everybody in the country should have access to free quality broadband was something that a lot of people said, yeah, well, that's just a nice to have. Haven't we seen through this pandemic, with everyone working from home, with children not being able to get educated in school, haven't we seen how much of a necessity that fundamental public service is? I mean, it's about 130 years since the Public Library Act, which gave the ordinary person access to knowledge, arts, literature, culture, all of those things to empower them and enrich their lives through public libraries. Well, it's the 21st century now, the modern equivalent of that, for all of those things, but also for earning a living and making sure our kids are educated in these difficult times, relies on things like the internet. Wouldn't it have been a good idea to get that policy through instead of ridiculing it? You just have to look. History will look a lot more kindly onto everything that Jeremy has stood for than those in the party that are so afraid of everything that Jeremy stands for and everything that everyone who supports Jeremy stands for, because it will disrupt the old order of things, and that needs to be disrupted, quite frankly.
Yeah. So, bit of communist broadband, I think that's what the papers were calling it at the time, wasn't it? Yeah. How insightful was it? And how sort of clairvoyant even? How with the way the pandemic has gone and children having to be educated at home, how useful would that be? And of course, in this day and age, how can you not look at the internet and broadband as an essential utility, as you would anything else? And what happened to all of Keir Starmer's pledges about renationalisation and taking back the energy companies into public ownership, and oh no, but public ownership is different from renationalisation apparently. He called his latest slogan on his latest umpteenth relaunch has been honesty, integrity, and respect. These are words I can attribute to Jeremy Corbyn. They are not words I can attribute to Keir Starmer whatsoever. It's farcical that he thinks people will continue to believe him. I mean, the media tends to give him a free pass most of the time, so people don't tend to know what Keir Starmer stands for anyway, even if he stood for much at all, which doesn't amount to a huge amount. But Jeremy did. Jeremy had this massive manifesto full of transformative changes that would have benefited so many people for the better, and that has been stripped away and taken away. And Keir Starmer thinks he can get elected to number 10 on the basis of throwing all of that out, and that just sickens me to my core. What on earth does Labour stand for now? And how can we get these transformative policies back on the table when they seem hell-bent on not listening to them anymore? Anyone want to jump in on that one?
Yeah, I think that's really important, Damo. Sorry to jump in. I mean, someone's just put in that 200,000 members apparently have left the party. Under Jeremy, the Labour Party became the biggest political party in Europe, at least, and also went from years of being in debt to being millions of pounds in the black. In such a short time, to have lost all of those members and to have lost all those finances, we're now in a comical position where, because the current management couldn't keep hold of our personal data, the ICO and various other bodies are looking into it, the Central Party have no idea who is in membership and who isn't. They're not making the payments to CLPs that CLPs should be getting from the membership dues, because they've no idea how much money ought to be spent out. They're in a real crisis. We've had 4 waves of redundancies of Labour Party staff. They've run the finances through the floor. It's absolutely outrageous that they've done that, and they are still turning their back and kicking out, well, stopping Jeremy from fulfilling his function, which he's been duly elected to do, but also kicking out so many members that actually have given their time as volunteers, free and gratis, for the Labour Party for all these years. It's almost as though they don't actually want there to be a Labour government, because I'm really struggling to see how they're going to achieve it.
Laura?
Well, I think they'd love there to be a Labour government on their terms and in their form with their badge on it, but no, not much else really. They would rather not see a Labour government ever again than see a proper left-wing Labour government. I think we saw that in 2017 and 2019. And when what they did in 2017 failed to prevent the Corbyn surge, etc., then they simply escalated their tactics until it eventually bit and caused the result in 2019. And now look at the state of the country, and the official figures 150,000, but far more than that who died during the COVID pandemic because of the idiot that's in charge as a result of the sabotage of the Labour campaign by the right. And let's be blunt about that. I'm not going to pull any punches about it. A couple of people asking about legal action. I don't know whether legal action is on the table, but the problem is that every time anything goes to court, the judges essentially seem to rule that the party can do whatever the hell it chooses, and whoever's currently in charge gets to define what that is, and essentially have impunity to it. So it's very difficult to sue them for and they don't care about their own rules. Even they'll just ride roughshod over those whenever, if they can't bend them, they'll just ignore them. So we're dealing with a very unscrupulous bunch of people who will stop at nothing to get what they want, and stop the left actually being able to implement any real change. So the legal route is a very tricky one, I think. Lynn, was that your finger I saw go up there? Or?
Yes, although I think Laura wanted to speak to.
Laura had her hand up first too.
I think another thing that we have to remember very well is when Keir Starmer, he wanted to be the leader when he was a candidate, as he said that Jeremy Corbyn, he mentioned that he was his friend, and also he said that the mainstream media just vilified him, that the mainstream media was attacking him, and also he said that he will continue with his legacy, and he said that he will continue with the socialist policies. So now we know that what he was saying is completely different. Yeah. So what he was using is because he wanted to be the leader. So now he's the leader, and now he wants to destroy the socialist policies, and he believes at the moment that he doesn't need of the movement. He believes at the moment that he doesn't need the members, and he thinks that probably he can go with the Tories and they will ask how to use social media. If he can copy an algorithm, probably he will have some supporters, because apparently there is a news that they saying that 400,000 people follow him. That is like a fake. That this is not true. So I don't know. I don't know about that. But maybe he believes the same ideology of Boris Johnson, that at the moment he doesn't need any member, that he doesn't need the movement. Yeah. But this is another fact, that the socialist policies, the manifesto for 2017 it was so popular, and this is the reason why people elect him as a leader. So I think now it's up to us, people inside the Labour Party and people outside the Labour Party, it's up to us to fight, and we say we don't want that the Tory party sell the NHS completely to the big companies in USA. It's up to us, if we campaign, to have a social justice in this country and to have a fair society, not just for us, but also for the new generations. Because what happened for the new generations? They won't have NHS, they don't have a pension, they won't have proper jobs, and I think it's up to us to continue with these socialist policies that Jeremy put the seeds. It's up to us to continue with his legacy.
I'd like to follow on from that about what hopes and yet what great difficulties we face. You know, the dire situation we are in with Jeremy and the left having been pushed so decisively to the very margins, and when they can, out of the party. What that means is that so many people are leaving. As we know, 200,000 have left, and more people will keep leaving. Now, some of them will join an independent socialist party. Of course, they'll never be elected with our first past the post system, but maybe there's some work they can do. But where I do see the residue of all the work that Jeremy and his team have done is in much municipal socialism. You know, we usually begin by pointing to Preston, but even in Islington, where Steph and I are, and elsewhere, we do see many of the things that were in that manifesto taken up. Many, and indeed more. You know, we have to insource all that's been outsourced. We have to try and build workers' co-ops. We have to stress the importance of care and so on. And this is happening. But of course, for it to happen, we have to keep Labour being elected in local governments. And that's going to get increasingly hard if everyone is giving up on the Labour Party. And then I do think, you know, we've been in the situation of the right being in control of the Labour Party for much of the history of the Labour Party. But then every now and then we get shifts, and we get people working towards those shifts in significant ways. So even today, in the most shallow of ways, we do see the Labour shadow cabinet taking up some of Corbyn's ideas because they don't have any other ideas of their own. So Rachel Reeves does put forward, you know, some of the ideas that were in the two manifestos that Jeremy Corbyn put forward, and they are going to have to, you know, that's the only place they can get their ideas, actually. And so we're just going to have to keep pushing those of us who manage to remain if we don't get pushed out. And I think it's crucial that the left of the Labour Party is not pushed out, even though I hugely value and have always been involved in grassroots movement activity. But, you know, grassroots movement activity needs at least some voices closer to the levers of power to be able to at least get their ideas heard. So for me, it is rather crucial that we do stay in the Labour Party. It's crucial for building the trade unions, the power of the trade unions and so on. And it's crucial for sustaining progressive municipal Labour councils as well. So I just hope that, people can, think strategically all the time about, what is the best way forward, even if they don't remain in the Labour Party, how they remain in some way connected to progressive possibilities within the Labour Party.
Well, there's food for thought. I think it's really important to carry on working through our trade unions and everything at the moment, because it would seem that through the trade unions, we have our only voice of opposition at the moment. There have been far too many times that we've been told in the Labour Party that now is not the time to challenge it on the issues of children returning to schools. It was no ifs, no buts from Starmer, quite regardless of what the NEU and the other education unions were saying about what needed to be done to make them safe, for example. What we need to be doing is making sure our voices are heard, helping our friends and neighbours. People are still going through a really hard time with the pandemic. Goodness only knows in 2 months' time, when those new fuel bills hit, there is going to be some really severe hardship for people out there. And we need to be raising our voice, whether it's through parliamentary means or through other means, such as the trade unions and local organisations and grassroots activities. We do need to keep up the good fight. They can stop Jeremy from standing or sitting on the Labour benches in Westminster, but they won't be able to stop the ideas that he's championed forever.
Let's hope not.
There's a question in there from Sabina saying, I believe Starmers, I believe she means their view of members is people who do as they're told, cough up money but have no voice. She's concerned that the Labour brand will be toxic. So I guess the idea is that by the time that, if the left ever gets control of the Labour Party, it's going to be poisonous by that time. What does the panel think is the action that we could take? So anybody got any thoughts on that one?
Well, I remember doorstepping before 2015 and being told by person after person that there's no point voting Labour because they'll do more or less the same as the Tories. So you might as well vote for the party that you know what they're going to deliver. And that was such a depressing message. And I would say that isn't true. We're not going to do, we're not going to do these things. But lo and behold, we had tuition fees come in and academies put through schools and private contractors getting money from the NHS and so on. So in actual fact, they were probably more right than I would at the time have conceded. And I don't want to be in that position again of knocking on doors, trying to sell policies that are just watered down versions of what the current government are offering us. That is my main concern. And if we are unable to go with a positive vision that's better for the many, not the few, I'm really not sure how we're going to sell the idea of people going out to vote for the party. It's put us in an impossible position, really. The foot soldiers are those of us on the left. When I've been out campaigning, it's been the leftists that have been doing the hard graft or picking up the phone or knocking on doors or standing out in the pouring rain handing out leaflets and things. It's generally speaking not the right wingers that do those things. So they rely on us to get their votes. I think if I was a Labour MP right now, I'd be very worried about who I was going to motivate to go out and campaign for me.
Yeah, I agree. It's going to be disproportionately the people that have left the party or have been suspended or expelled. Mainly the ones that will have left of their own volition will be the ones that are most politically active within their CLPs. They will be the ones that went out door knocking. They will be the ones that went out leafleting and having conversations on doorsteps. And this is something that poll leads that Starmer has accrued don't reflect. People are looking at that and might be thinking, oh, well, Labour's on a route to a majority or something like that, looking at some of these recent polls. But actually, that still requires people to go out there and door knock and doorstep because they don't have the money to throw around that the Conservatives always have. And these people are not there now. They are not going to put out their time, their effort to go out and try and have conversations with people when, for most questions that I can imagine they'd be asked, they haven't got an answer to because Starmer doesn't actually have a policy position on it, and his honesty and integrity and his respect will come into question because he's been so dishonest up until this time. And he has flip-flopped and he has changed his mind. He has said he stood for this, but then changed to that. And I think there is an intrinsic problem when people look at Keir Starmer as to, can I believe what this man is saying?
Yeah.
But we're going to have a particular problem in North Islington, of course. But, I mean, there were quite a number, well, several dozen, wonderful new MPs that got voted in 2019, many of them ethnic minority. So they're going to be there. They're going to be there carrying on the tradition of Jeremy Corbyn and fighting in every way they possibly can. And then, of course, as I keep saying, those ideas are there, at municipal levels. And we're going to be fighting as hard as we can to preserve that. But certainly, we will have to be doing a lot of work on the outside as well, whether in the trade unions or just in other ways at grassroots levels to stop the ongoing hideous privatization, even of all our GP practices. I mean, it is, quite staggering, the dreadful nature of what is happening, trying to turn everything into a market. All our public resources will be marketized. So, we've got so much work to do, but, we still have a few people in there, in Parliament, and a few people, more people there at local levels and in the trade unions. So we just have to keep working together at every level, it seems to me.
Mm-hmm. On the local level, just jumping in London, we've got council elections happening this May. And for the first time ever, a number of London CLPs are struggling to get enough candidates for the places to stand. And I just think that's such a damning indictment, because activists and people that are keen and supportive of the party and still in the party are not prepared to put their name to the current regime. And I think that's a really sad state of affairs. If we can't run full slates in London, then the party is really in a very difficult position.
That's not just a London phenomenon. I mean, that's been seen in lots of different parts of the country. I mean, obviously you'll always get a few jobs with who'll step up because they fancy a council allowance or whatever it is for being councillors. But there are, in surprisingly large number of places, they're struggling to fill their tickets because the people are almost embarrassed to stand up and say they're part of Starmer's Labour and identify themselves with his lack of substance. Steph, go
on. What you described, Bonnie, about campaigning when you're not really sure about the candidate or the policies. I mean, we've been so lucky in Islington North to have Jeremy, and throughout all of the years when we might have, disagreed with national Labour policy, Jeremy has just been a beacon of, principled ideas, and it's been really easy to door knock for Jeremy. And we do have a wonderful council, sort of going back to Lynn's point about municipal socialism, that, the council in Islington, has done a lot for people in Islington. They're a very responsive council. And I think that, people are in Islington are really committed, and that's sort of rooting them into Labour at the moment. But I think it is nationally a problem. And I think that, the candidates who do support those progressive policies will attract more supporters. And that may then be reflected in how the balance of power in Labour works out. Because people who don't have inspiring policies will not attract people, if their views are divergent and they're not supporting the kind of changes that we need.
No, I think divisive measures like what the vote that's happened today are certainly not going to help either. There is nothing in what has happened today that is going to encourage people to stay and campaign or to go out and fight for Labour in any way, or even join Labour in any way, shape or form. It is going to encourage people to look at other parties, I think. I don't know how you guys feel about that, especially in light of the PAL announcement that happened earlier this week, the Progressive Alliance of the Left with these other smaller parties. Are they going to become a greater force potentially now because Labour is being seen by more and more people as a dead duck for the left?
In my view, I'm not giving up on Labour. I'm not giving up on Jeremy being reinstated. I'm committed to, trying to recapture what we had, which was we were on the cusp of being able to make incredible changes. And it could have been something which would have inspired the whole world. But that was in 2017. Who would have thought in 2014 that we would have, 3 years later, been in such a position. So I think things can change very quickly. We have to stick to our principles, but we never expected Jeremy to be leader. We never expected a lot of things. So I'm hopeful, cautiously optimistic.
It's interesting, isn't it, that overwhelmingly it's clear that people who are listening think there is no hope for Labour, overwhelmingly. And of course, that's what I think has been the very worst fallout, and will continue to be the worst fallout of Starmer's leadership of the party, because I actually don't even see the point of there being an independent party. I see the point of a lot of grassroots activity, but I just don't know what they think the party is going to be able to do. Certainly, alliances are going to be crucial, but it should be the Labour Party that is working out what progressive alliances it should be able to make. And this particular Labour Party doesn't seem to know who is progressive anyway. But we are in a very, very tricky situation in terms of keeping any hold of power at government level. And without that, given we've still got hegemonic neoliberalism, we get the total corporate takeover of everything. An independent Socialist Party out of, nothing can be done to stop that. And only the Labour Party in power could stop that. And, Rachel Reeves has said something about being opposed to corporate control of everything. But, how serious she is, it's hard to know. But it's only with policies like that, that we don't completely go down the American route of, the most obscene inequality, the richest country in the world still, though China might be slightly richer, and the most obscene inequality and utter carelessness, at every level.
It's a tough situation because I think people are just desperate for something new. I mean, whether the kind of thing that's happened in Spain and in Portugal, etc., could happen in the UK with our different system, would remain to be seen. But I can thoroughly sympathise with everybody who's sick to death of seeing the party act like a cuckoo in the nest and kick out everybody who's actually meant to be there. And I think there has to be some kind of pressure from outside, whether that's through an alternative party or through something else, to make these people realise that they can't, as Mandelson did, just say, well, where they're going to go, and then not care about what anybody thinks. I think they'll shed votes by the boatload at the next election, because they're too busy chasing Tory votes that aren't going to come to them to bother actually appealing to, they're arrogant enough to think they don't need to appeal to ordinary people and all these. I hate using the term red wall because it was made up by Tories, is it? A way of trying to twist people's thinking anyway. But all of the kind of Labour heartland seats, they just think they're going to come tenderly walking back, and I don't think they will, because I don't think that they see anything in Starmer that means they can trust him to actually do any change. And one of the tricks in the last election was because of the Starmer-driven push to have another referendum, Boris Johnson, the Etonian and Bullingdon Club toff, was able to present himself as the anti-establishment candidate, which was just bloody ridiculous. And Labour looked like the establishment party because they were pushing to try and just maintain the status quo. And but Starmer is about maintaining the status quo. That it was his fault with all the stuff that happened in 2019, anyway, 2018 onwards. And
I think Labour in danger.
He's not going to look like an anti-establishment figure. And he's not even trying to. He's trying desperately to look more establishment and persuade people that he's this flag shagging, kind of little Englander really now.
I don't say it easily, but I think Labour needs to have a look at what happened to the Labour vote in Scotland when they shifted to the right. I think there's a massive lesson that needs to be learned there. If they want to stay political power in the UK, they need to start learning some lessons. The vast majority of people want socialism. They want an NHS. They want a publicly provided education sector and transport and energy and all of those things. These are not just things that people would like to have. It's things that people need to have for any kind of civilized life. If we call ourselves a civilized society, we need to have all of those things. And if Labour want to hang on to their votes, and I really don't say this easily, I've worked really hard along with millions of other people all around the country to try and win votes for Labour. I've stood for election myself a few times for the party. I don't say it easily, but we need to start learning lessons, take a long hard look at where the mood of the public is, because at the moment the vote that they've taken today is totally against the public mood. It's really wrong-minded, and they need to review that, in my opinion.
We're in our last 4 minutes. Let's give the last 4 minutes to Laura to run out the show. And is there any message from Jeremy? I don't know. We were hoping he might make a little appearance on the program, but doesn't look like that's going to be happening.
He is in Parliament. He went to Parliament as usual to represent the people in Islington and to vote against the Tory party. I think even he's not a leader, but I think still he's taking his work very serious for more than 30 years, and still he represents his constituency. So he went to the Parliament, and he went to vote against this Tory government. But I know it's very depressing. I know that, but still, I think our movement is quite strong. Our movement is very big inside the Labour Party and outside the Labour Party. I believe that most of the people, they want to live in a place where they can share all the nice things in this country. Most of the people, they like to be kind. They care about people. They care about climate change. They care about animals. They care about everything. And I think we had to carry on to fight, campaigning inside the Labour Party and outside the Labour Party. We don't need to give this opportunity to the right wing to destroy our community, to destroy our society. And we had to always to oppose, as we always say, to oppose wars, to oppose to oppose cuts for the riches for the poor people. So I think if we have these values, we have to carry on with our values, and we have to spread the voice that together we can develop a much better society for the future generations. I know this right wing, they try to destroy us. They want that we live in austerity, that we had to just give up our policies, our values. But I think we had to be stronger, and then we had to fight against them.
Very good. We'll run up against the end of the show now, and I will try. I mean, we could keep going for a lot longer. I think in the comments I haven't been able to keep up during the program, but I'll just point out that along the bottom there we've got the web address for Islington Friends of Jeremy Corbyn, which Steph asked me to put up on the screen. So anybody who's interested in supporting that, particularly if you live in Islington, then get yourselves there for a visit. Thank you very much for bearing with us. The numbers and the people watching have been very good by the looks of the stats here. And I do appreciate your time. If you're watching this on catch up, then again, thank you for that. Do spread the word. And we could potentially have a program tomorrow night as well, and then we will have one on Thursday night with some special guests, of which details will be published very shortly. So join us on Thursday night, I think same time again, or either 7:30 or 8. And for being with us tonight. Do support Socialist Telly, and of course do support Jeremy Corbyn and his comrades in Islington.
Join the Peace and Justice Project as well while you're at it.
Oh yeah, there we go. That'll annoy all the right winners.
Yes.
Take care, folks. Have a good night.
Thank you for having us.
Cheers.
Thank you.